this wasn't so much about what divinity is that he's impressing on people that he was not divine. He did come as a human being.
Do you know why he had to explain that to them?
Because all of our Christian faith is based on him being a God.
And they have taken it wrong. Okay.
Yeah, he's trying to say a human figure like us. There are bits of that divine presence in all of us, but we are made of the particles that we talked about from the atomic theory and how things are put together, and protons and electrons, and which is a creation of the divine.
I kind of feel like, though, that, and I want to pop in, so I feel when I'm talking, you guys can't see me, and it's this voice in the background, but I feel like I've always needed a hero, or someone to look up to, or someone to believe in. So do you think it's the case that people need someone like that? So when you say divine, or someone, my father, my hero, my leader, I kind of think the same way. Like, is there someone that I can mirror, someone that I can go to that mentor me to say, all right, here's the right and wrong, and then you decide what works for you?
As Christ goes through these letters and talks about that, he's not against somebody maybe looking for guidance in our physical life right now, but he makes a very strong statement to not follow that person like a godhead or try to emulate them because they have the way. He does point out there that his letters here are pointing the way to us, and it's so contrary to what I think every religion has really impressed upon people. Those who are on earth are actually mortal people that have divine essence within them. Some are more true than others, perhaps, but he's saying don't necessarily go for false gods or prophets, or don't place people on earth, including himself, put their reliance and faith on a human being. There are some people out there who can offer inspiration and guidance to help us get there, but really, he said it is between us and the all that there is. Even himself, he says, don't follow me. I mean, I'm here to help you get a foot up on the stool, if you will, but I'm not the be all end all as Jesus Christ. It's with the divine is who you need to make your peace with, and who you want to be in commune with. So
when I think about not following false prophets, right? Not letting one person, one statue, one memory be my end all be all. I think about when I first learned that my mom or my parents or my dad was not God, right? Like, they make mistakes too. Mm-hmm. And I was well off into my 30s. And that was shocking for me because I was measuring everything in my life as to what they did. And when I realized that they were just human and they're on the same earth learning different lessons along their journey as well, it made me view them differently. It made me view them humanly, made me view them as, wait, we're all trying to figure it out, but show grace, show, like, everybody has, they had their own trials and tribulations with different stuff, My mom, I feel like, had a bit with gambling, and I hope she's not watching this. My dad, his dad was an alcoholic, so he didn't allow drinking, card playing, and but he cursed a lot in the house. So it was just different things that I remember in my childhood where it taught me, don't believe in false gods, or don't put so much pressure or idol on people. You know right from wrong, and you have to follow those steps as they apply in my life. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But we have to remember that we're not responsible for anybody else's lives, if you will, and nobody's responsible for us. There are people out there, and we need to discern who is right, who is wrong, the better way to go. But ultimately, because of our ego, that's what we're all individually trying to struggle to break away from, the ego consciousness, to something that's more aligned with the divine. If we are in tune, if we can get there, all this can be ours too. You can change, literally be an alchemist and change the elements to whatever you need. Realizing too that it's not like you're going to make a bomb to hurt your enemy or something like that. It's to be good, and that's the hook from the old traditional way of thinking that God is vengeful, or God is going to bring suffering, or God is going to bring me grace. It has nothing to do with it. It's really how we are individually. If we're successful, and money is not necessarily evil, but what we choose to do with it can become evil. And there's many things that, as he said before, that anything that we have right now in our human existence came from the divine ultimately, and it can be used for good or not so. And it's our choice and how we use that. Stay with you, and hello everybody.
Hello everybody. Sorry we didn't do a good intro. I'm pretty sure you saw the music jumping in the beginning, and we just started talking because that's what we do. We have conversations.
Definitely. So the last time we were talking about brotherly love, and we kind of ended with that. And it's going to lead the next thing here into letter 1 still. He's talking about a little psychology, if you will. And he's making a statement here that there are a few people in this world right now who really regard themselves as whole at this present time.
WHOLE.
WHOLE, yeah. So there's something we're all searching for. Something is not just exactly right in our life. And myself, personally, willing to aspire to be where Christ was, as he's talking about in these letters. And I think there's a long road for me to go to get there. But it's really intriguing for me, at least at this time, to try to emulate that. And as I mentioned in our last session, I get tested every day as soon as I get on the highway, or when somebody comes into the office and brings bad news in, something's not right, something's broken, challenges, whatever. I mean, it's to be able to balance that with where we should be.
If you're sitting out there and you're thinking like, and that's a tough question, what do I think I need to make myself whole? Or what do I feel I'm lacking or missing that will make me whole? Oh, wow. Like my mind goes to better nutrition, better relationships. I can't think of any wrongs that I want to right, but kind of like what Ron said, as I move into the ending part of my life, the last stage of my life, how can I be my best self? How can I show up every day with an open heart, open mind, gracefulness, kind words, even when I'm being wrong? And that is the test that I think we're both relating to. We've probably been through the learning stages of our lives, so now I'm I know a lot, I know better, I'm doing better now. Mindset. When will the lessons end?
Well, when we get it right in our final presence on earth.
You think so?
Oh, that's the goal. When Christ, when Buddha, when Muhammad, they finally got it right and they ascended from there. And that's what he's saying in here, that they're all the ascended masters now, and that's the goal for all of us.
My best friend is 78 years old. She works with me. We're 2 peas in the pod, and she's still learning lessons right now.
Kind of got to wonder, Mother Teresa is probably a contemporary example in the things that she did. Did she get everything right? Is she done, or will she come back too, where there's some issues she struggled with and did not get right and need to still work on? I mean, but that's a very personal thing, and something that we go over when we do cross back over. And I do believe that, and that's what Christ is getting to. He doesn't really discuss spiritual ascendance and the multiple levels on the other side. He's talking about getting there in the first place right now. And these other items that I've just brought into the conversation are largely from other readings that I have done in my personal beliefs of where we're going to go with it all. So, got to get to the door first, and then once you cross through, what's next? Just like a good psychiatrist would say here, he's saying it's urgently necessary for him to intrude upon our minds to lead us to a new way of thought, which kind of answers what you were saying before about, when will the lessons end? When we get our mind right. He said there was much that he taught about in Palestine which people were not yet ready to receive. And there's a little bit of a diversion here, but he's also making a statement that's important because he said it's never been publicly questioned why there was no record of his early life as a young man and what was the true reason for such an all-important omission. And he's about to tell us that here. And the truth regarding his human state was, by common consent of his disciples, suppressed to give greater credence to his supposed divinity. And this is probably going to upset a lot of people here right now, but he's saying, according to the Gospels, it was said that he was the only Son of God, in quotes, okay?
Wow.
But he asked a further question. He says, why then did I refer to myself as the Son of Man? I specifically made these statements to counteract the prevalent beliefs in his divinity and to impress on people's minds that I was the same physical origins as themselves. He's one of us. He's saying, you can do this too. There's a lot of work to it, but you can get there and make it that way. You know, we do continue to come back to work on these lessons to try to improve ourselves, to put ourselves through. So, you know, and it's not like it's a crash course. Hey, let's get out here and hurry, worry about this stuff and try to get everything right. Ace the test on the first time out. That's not going to happen. You know, we're in and of the world, and our ego, which not only protects us, also gets us into a lot of trouble along the way. And we need to learn to discern when we want to listen and let that ego power take over versus tap into the divine and say, okay, you know, I'll take this on the cuff. You know, does anybody who believes in his power and divinity think that when they were prosecuting him and nailing him on the cross that he could not have jumped off in a split second at any time and changed the circumstances around there? And of course he could have, but he knew that he came to deliver a message and was to move on. And to show any aggression, to show any retribution would have been counter to where he was at in his incarnations. And it allowed him, by accepting everything that was dealt out to him, to ascend to that level where he would continue ascending and is, now where he is in the heavens, highly, highly evolved. Oh, I'm going to repeat the last sentence I just read a few moments ago. And it says, my disciple gospelers related only to what they personally remembered, which fully supported their accounts of Christ's, quote, supernatural activities. They also included much that had been spoken of Christ by others during the 30 odd years following his death. And after such a lapse of time, an inevitable embroidery of truth, how could they possibly write an authoritative biography of me in what really happened, or properly explain his spiritual perceptions, which were brand new at the time, radical thinking, which gave birth to his words and miracles? When I was more involved with church and doing some Bible study, it was even agreed, because there's differences between the four Gospels that we have today. There was embellishment and changes along the way. And this is what we're ending up with, but how much other stuff got trimmed, or around Earth versus a flat Earth type discussion. When Galileo declared that the world was round, it was heretical. So, this is nothing new. It's been there and present ever since Christ has been here, about understanding what the message was. And I believe these letters are true, and I believe he's coming back to set the record straight. And it's me to doubt that these aren't true words. There's really nothing that fantastical.
I agree, and I'll take this opportunity, guys. I'm gonna drop in right now, coming on the screen, 3 movies that are based off the same exact book. But if you watch all 3 of these movies, you will notice that the words, the scenes are different in different areas. This is how one person viewed it, another director viewed it one way, and then another producer viewed it the third way. And this is kind of a good example of what
Christ is explaining here why he did and how he did what he did. He says, for over 40 years, his recorder, the person that wrote down these channelings, Her mind has been systematically cleansed of all orthodox teachings, and the system of communication between us has been perfected, meaning that he was able to put thoughts, words, or images into her head, and she physically typed the keys. And he's validating himself here also. He's talking about his place in history. And for those who maybe did a little bit deeper studying, Christ is saying that his life was actually briefly referred to in the history of the Jews, written by Josephus, a Roman governor, and presented to the Roman emperor. Okay, and Josephus briefly noted that Jesus, who attempted to overthrow law and order and the governance of the Romans, was punished and crucified. It's been argued, he says here, that some other Jesus was recorded by Josephus, but this is not so. He said it was me, who later became the Christ and performed the so-called miracles of healing and materialization. And note, he's talking about so-called miracles. It's something that can happen right now, today, in this moment. If I was of the right mind and I needed to do, somebody was here and I could lay hands on them, and I think we've all heard about instantaneous healings, this can happen. It's not really miraculous. It's only miraculous to us who have not seen it or experienced it, but it's actually the way things are.
Wow. Because
he talked earlier about the way of the world, the way of the divine. The intention is health and nourishment and learning and growth. Nothing about pain, sorrow, suffering, or
revenge or
anything like that. And Jesus is making the distinction here, though. Josephus referred to him as a rabble-rouser, that he tried to overthrow the Roman government, but he said, no, that's not true. I was not a rabble-rouser. I did not deliberately disturb people up to defy the Romans and disrupt law and order. But he was a rebel against existing Jewish traditions, and because when he emerged from his 6-week sojourn in the desert, he saw a better way to think and live, and he tried to pass on his knowledge to his fellow Jews, albeit with little success.
Wow. So there's a man that wrote about Jesus, and I feel like we have to think about in real life today. We all have our favorite reader, our favorite author, and it's based on their experiences, their point of view, and their vision. Like they say, it's 3 sides to every story, mm-hmm. or something like that, and then there's the truth. Mm-hmm. So that's his vision, that's his memory, as you kind of said earlier.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And, to think that these things could happen through the intervention of a person, to think that what they've been taught for thousands of years, that God is in the sky sitting on the throne, either offering and passing out goodwill and blessings, or throwing a lightning bolt at somebody and being vengeful. It's not there. But there's one voice from a poor guy in a small village coming out to say this. And so, it's kind of like saying something against the popular belief in the government today, that you just kind of get quashed.
Yeah.
And granted, a lot of this stuff came through, but it's still distorted because it had to be suitable enough so that everybody else with that same message didn't necessarily, throw it out. Mm-hmm. So progress was made, but we're not there yet. So Jesus did try to pass on his knowledge to the fellow Jews with little success, and the pressure of public opinion weighed with his followers. And so while they truly believed he brought a soul-saving message to the Jews and was the Messiah, the Son of God, they were also of this world, trying to relate to the world as best as they could, and therefore, although they knew that his reactive feelings towards the Jewish beliefs, they were not happy to dispense of the Old Testament altogether because it had supported and kept the Jews together throughout their history. And I think you had a similar upbringing as me and possibly other Christian religions too, that they talk about how Jesus renewed everything, and there's all these parallels going back and forth, and he's even saying that's not the case.
Right.
But it was a way to bring the new teaching forward. And again, we have made progress. A lot of good things have happened, but there's more.
Wow.
Now, he's talking about his disciples and Paul. They each built their own edifice of sacred beliefs on what they wanted to preserve from his life and teachings. And they only taught and consolidated what deemed to be valuable to the people, the Jews and the Gentiles alike, at that time and in the future. And consequently, they distilled what they could use, and then they let go most of what he termed the secrets of the kingdom of God, for what they never understood them. And that pervades still today. I mean, established religions typically, yoga is one thing, meditation, something else, belief in afterlife, reincarnation. These are all things that traditional mainstream Christian religions do not embrace today.
Yeah.
But it was core in the message here, but it struck such a sour chord with the mentality at the time he was in, he came, they got lost.
I think I read somewhere where it said for every person that thinks differently, there are two people telling them to think the same. And when I think about that in the world today, I can see that in my everyday life. For every coworker, there are two that's doing what they can to get through the day, and there's one saying, I'm gonna have lunch at 11 and not 12. And they're the oddball out. And you and I talked about this, but who wants to be the oddball out?
Yeah.
Who wants to think differently?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of lucky because I always have thought differently. And I think it's gotten me to where I am career-wise by thinking differently and challenging, why do you do this? Because we're creatures of habit. We get in the habit of doing things. Why are you issuing that report? Well, because I was told to. Where does it go? Did you ask? Is it still needed? It's human nature.
Wow.
So, to preserve the Jewish belief in salvation, which is something that they, strongly believe in because the temple sacrifices and paying for your sins and all that good stuff, to preserve that belief, the person of Jesus was adapted as the supreme sacrifice, who paid for men's sins by his crucifixion. And this served many beliefs and purposes at the time.
Listing all the current religions that exist today. And I know you guys may belong to one of these groups, but I just want to highlight what the variety amount is out there. So you ask yourself, where do you fit in this? And if you found this video, I'm convinced that you're questioning yourself. Where do you want to fit in? Where's your place?
Thank you. Yes, very much so. Jesus' death was on the cross. It by saying that he died for our sins, or when I say collectively our sins, it gave that death a valid and heroic reason. It proved to the people that he was the Son of God who had carried out a specific mission to the very end of his life. Now, as far as like the ascension and some other things and him rising from the dead, he's going to talk about that, and I don't want to spoil that, but I know that's probably a big thing in a lot of people's minds right now, that, oh no, he was gone and blah, blah, blah. Christ will address this. Many sects of Jews and Gentiles did not believe in life after death, as many people today don't. And consequently, it was greatly comforting to hear that Jesus Christ had overcome death and retained his body. to much human thought at that time, life was not possible without a body. And therefore, life after death could only mean the resurrection of the body. When he was walking around and supposedly eating with people and whatever, he looked differently. That was a statement that they made in the Bible, if you're going to go back and quote to the Bible. Well, how was it different? Could they not describe it that way? You could get there for what this is saying here is somehow the body started, as he talked about when he was in the desert where he saw the shimmer of motes, was his physical body starting to shimmer and expand because of the higher energy with his ascending consciousness? Was it starting to kind of sort of like dissolve in thin air? You could almost get there that way, but he's saying no, the body died. It served no purpose other than house his consciousness while he's here on this earth, and his conscience lived on. Now, some people believe in ghosts, some people don't believe in ghosts. There's been a lot of people who say that they've seen apparitions, okay? I personally believe that, probably a spirit that's disembodied closer to the earth plane can somehow make itself known, although it's more wispy, this sort of a thing. Wasn't more likely that Christ's body did in fact die, and he was still hanging around, if you will, before fully ascending, and because he had such a close bond with his disciples, he appeared to them that way, that he looked different, right? Somehow it says in there, was it more of his, I hate to use the term ghost, but an embodiment of him that they were able to see a figure there where his consciousness was still there. I don't think we talked about it yet, but he gives another explanation of like when I forget what the church holiday is called, when he rose up on the mountain and was talking with Peter and Moses, or not Peter and Moses, that was Moses and one of the other ancient guys. And then
Easter, Sabbath day.
Yeah, I forget.
Okay.
And then the other one where he walked on water, he explains how he did that while he was still in a human body. Okay. Again, this all goes back to that first journey in the desert of him being able to kind of see through, if you will, or see objects as a shimmer of motes, where he was so highly, his mind was so highly risen, so highly in tune with the all there is, that it wasn't, ascension is a bad word, but he was able to, see, like as I'm looking at you here right now, and I would see your body sort of shimmer from all the little electrons and neutrons spinning around, which they really are doing, but they appear solid, they appear hard to us right now. Did he come back in that kind of a form so that his disciples would see him for a period of time like that? So
Right.
However you want to do it, I truly believe, yes, his body died, he went away, and he came back in that form. But you could also, if you want to believe in the resurrection, that his body came back, but it wasn't a, blood-filled body, because the one story that he's going to dispel, but even is in the Bible, about Thomas putting fingers in the wounds. How do you do that to a real person who is dead or was dead? So anyway, it's very controversial, you're right, but I do believe that, the body serves no purpose. Our consciousness can live on, and it will live on forever, and it's been around forever. It's just a vehicle we're in while we're on this incarnation. Kind of bringing us forward to this point, my belief in God has shifted from the old guy sitting on a throne, either passing out graces or thunderbolts, whatever the case may be on people, to something that's it's a consciousness out there that, and it's really tough to get your head around this, because when you think about the vastness of what we know and the scene of the universe, although it's coming a little more into view now with some of the powerful telescopes on there, what caused all this to be? Okay? What could have, as he put in there, what caused that first particle to connect with another particle, to create a molecule, to come together to create a cell, which knew how to take in nourishment and expel waste, and then get a little bit bigger and have become to put a body of some type together, whether it be human or other animal or rock or whatever the case may be. And especially like with humans with consciousness, how did that all get put together? Did it all happen for chance? Can you really believe that all this came from nothing, from a couple tiny little electronic particles that are just there? And what caused them to be? And if you break down every substance in our visible world or non-visible world, because even gases are part of that too, what caused everything to differentiate the way it did? How did that happen? And then, what is the purpose of all this? For this, all that is, to be able to learn and expand, because without it, it was just there and probably quite happy, but there was maybe, what else can I do? And by creating the different worlds in at least our planet here with the life and the things that we see, and the other worlds that are undoubtedly out there for other, populated worlds and things like that, it's all to gain experience and to grow, to evolve to something that understands pain, understands joy, understands all of this stuff, and truly richly experience it, and then be able to figure out how do you move from here to there to where you can be evolved, and then we can spend our time in eternity and happiness with all of the knowledge that we've gained through many collective lifetimes, and also be able to share my thoughts with your thoughts, with the other person over here's thoughts, and that we live in harmony. And what Christ is saying is here, you can all do it all on your own, regardless how you want to do it, and here's the way.
I love that summary. I absolutely love it. Say goodbye, but I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I hope divinity, the role of the church, I hope that we make sense to you. I hope that you found a different way or a better way to understand. I hope that you learned something from this. I hope that Ron and I are conveying the message the way God has led us to do it.
And again, thank you also, everybody. Be open. Don't look at this with a closed mind. Be open to the possibilities. You never know what you're going to find there. And if you're, as Val said, if you think you're here and you're kind of maybe looking for something different, I don't have it. We're just trying to dialogue to maybe get your interest, so you can go to the letters yourselves and discern for yourself and find out if it's right for you or not. But you won't know until you try it.
I agree with that. All right, so stay tuned for next week.